Welcome to Tiffany Turned On. I'm your host, Tiffany Anton. I'm a psychotherapist specializing in sex and relationships, hoping to help you discover current topics in a fun, sometimes serious, and educational manner. I hope to help you get turned on in life as well as inside of your bedroom. We look at fitting in, assigned male at birth, attracted to a cisgender female. How old were you when you thought, you know what, this masculine presentation isn't genuine, or this 100% heterosexual wasn't genuine to the core of who you were or you are?
I guess let me say this first. So I was always attracted to men in some way and kind of considered myself bi in a way, but didn't really share that with anyone. Robin kind of knew that about me, my spouse, but she was monogamous, which meant I had to be monogamous if we wanted to be together.
Because you chose that person.
Correct.
I chose Robin. Okay.
Yes. I was monogamous through that whole relationship, that 22 years.
22 years you guys were together.
22 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So it wasn't until maybe like the last 10 years of our relationship or so that I was doing a lot more drugs at that point, which while I was high allowed me to be more free with who I was.
Because your self-judgment was down?
Yes. And explore different roles. Really like being pegged.
And that was back then. That was before it became popular.
Yes.
Now there's a big difference.
And so I sought that out.
Now here's something that I hear with straight macho guys in regards to pegging is I'm not gay. And I say there's a huge difference between your female partner wearing a strap-on and entering you than a male with a penis entering you and your sexual and emotional attraction to that male with the penis. So you just associated pegging with sexuality and gender.
In a way. I would say it definitely has to do with role reversal.
Well, I enjoy the power play of it.
Yes.
You know, that we can put the strap-on and we can have a male partner that's in more of a receiving role.
And so at that time, I associated dominance with male, submission with female, which was my shit. I mean, that's definitely not, how it is or how it needs to be, but that was in my head what that meant.
Now, this was fun to research. What is pegging? Pegging generally refers to a sexual activity that involves a woman wearing a strap-on dildo while performing anal penetration on a straight man, although the term can also be used to describe it regardless of the gender roles. How popular is pegging now? 16% of sexually active adults have tried pegging. This is according to the Women's Health Interactive under the Sex Research and Statistics. About 10% of women report having tried pegging, and 10% say they're interested in giving it a try. 40% of women reported having fantasies about giving anal to their male partners. And almost 60% of men have reported fantasizing about being on the receiving end of anal. That description may not sound sexy, but pegging has considerable appeal in the heterosexual scene. As it turns out, a lot of men enjoy getting pegged. The term pegging itself resulted from a contest held by the very famous sex columnist Dan Savage. More than 12,000 people cast their votes to name the act of a straight man being anally penetrated by a woman. Decades later, pegging is commonly accepted slang, still used to describe this wonderful strap-on sex between heterosexual couples. Sales of pegging gear and equipment, you have to get a good harness and a really good dildo. It has risen about 45% each year since 2018. I hope the listeners understand that this is one person's experience. Like, you're not out there saying this is representing the vast majority of individuals, but I do believe your experience aligns with so many. What I'm hearing about, you're saying, earlier on, post-high school, but still in your early 20s, what you enjoyed about the pegging experience was getting into your own feminine energy and feeling more feminine.
Yes.
And having your wife in a masculine role and being dominated.
Absolutely. And for a while talked about like a female-led relationship, which she just wasn't really into. But
and many people don't know what a female-led relationship is.
okay,
We can think bitchy, controlling wife.
right.
What's
but
the
this
difference?
is more domination, negotiated domination. So it's very well planned out and talked out and then played out as these roles of dominant and submissive in a female-led relationship extend to like 24/7 dynamic.
And that is a whole discussion that I'm hoping that we talk about, that I provide on this show to listeners, is, what does a 24/7 mean? We might say, oh, I feel like I'm working on this project 24/7. Yet when we're using the same language in relationships, it has a completely different meaning. You're stating that you thought about your gender, you enjoyed being in not only a submissive role, but within your feminine energy in your marriage.
And then when things kind of really amped up was when I started wearing female clothing in that scenario, which Robin did not like.
So your wife didn't like when you wore female clothes.
Correct.
A minute ago, I was mentioning pegging and people worried about being gay. I work with clients that are cross-dressers, and they have wives that think you're going to be gay because you're wearing women's clothes, where cross-dressers statistically are straight cis males. And Correct. It doesn't have to do with their overall gender identity. And it tended to not change any sexual orientation. I mean, these are straight dudes that enjoy dressing in different clothes. A prevalent myth around cross-dressing is exactly as I mentioned, that you must be gay or you must be trans. However, this misnomer couldn't be farther from the truth. When a transgender person dresses as their gender identity, it's not cross-dressing, because that person is dressing as the gender they identify. For instance, a trans woman dressing like a woman is not a cross-dresser. She is simply dressing as per her gender. Cross-dressers often do not experience any sort of gender dysphoria. Therefore, they're comfortable in their own gender and the body of which they were born. They don't have a desire to change their sex. There are many reasons behind the interest in cross-dressing. One is excitement, fantasy, arousal, exploring the role of masculinity and femininity. For some, it can help reduce anxiety and instill a sense of calm. This is not an issue that is a concern. The only concern, actually, is that they may be discriminated against. So don't worry. If you're married to a dude who enjoys wearing a dress and full makeup, it has no reflection on his attraction to you or his desire to become a woman. Of interesting to note is that women, from day to day, wear jeans and button-down shirts and baseball caps. And you notice that women tend not to be discriminated against, but if we have a male wearing something that's more stereotypically feminine, like a dress or makeup, it completely challenges our societal norms of what it means to be a man. Yet does it challenge the societal norms when a woman wears the baseball cap and no makeup and a button-down shirt? We just might get the label of tomboy. The discrimination level can be very high for cross-dressers, unfortunately. How is that experience of cross-dressing different than your experience in putting on feminine attire?
So this definitely wasn't my first experience with female clothes. This is something I had played with a good part of my life and would get clothes and then purge them and go through this cycle of shame, guilt and shame about it.
So what's wrong with me that I'm wanting to put on these traditional feminine clothes?
Yeah. And a big thing I found in the way that I explained it to Robin was they make me feel sexy.
Well, because they are sexy.
I don't feel, yes. But I was in a place where I don't feel sexy in my body. And these feminine clothes make me feel sexy, partly because I see females as so sexy when they wear these clothes.
Did you think at that time, when you were still married, I wish that my body, my physical body, aligned with the clothing?
I did. I definitely did. And I had breast forms at one point and wearing those and would wear bra and panties out sometimes under my other clothes. And that did definitely come into play. And interestingly, I found that outside of Robin, when I would look at other people and what I was attracted to as in the outside world, I realized later I was attracted to what I wished I was.
Oh, tell me more.
Yeah, I was attracted to primarily females who were really expressive with their looks, particular goth, punk, stuff like that, colored hair, piercings, tattoos, all of that's just like so attractive to me and made me, want to be with them then, but in hindsight, it was like, that is what I want to be. That is who I want to be. You are that, and that's like amazing to me, and you are so awesome.
You said that you cross-dressed with your wife, and she didn't like it.
No.
Can you dive into that for us?
Yeah. She would do things for me sometimes, and I did appreciate that, but it was very much a turnoff for her.
You said she would do things for me.
Yeah. So
you're going to have to help me there.
Absolutely. Like, pegging wasn't ever really her thing. That was all for me.
Well, what's hard about pegging is we don't have much sensation as the female with the strap on. So sometimes we can really suck at like depth control or going in like maybe a little bit too fast, or not being able to determine dryness and definitely needing more lubrication.
Which is why, as a bottom, you need to know how to
really
communicate those things.
Give me some lube, damn it.
Right. I mean, I'm kind of a sluttier bottom, so it's like just... just bang away.
Hold on. People listening might think literally your bottom is slutty versus identifying more switchy. And when you switch into more of the submissive role, then you can be a slutty submissive. Let's say that, other than a slutty bottom. You know, you're not sticking it out there for everyone. Ooh, look at my slutty bottom.
Right. When I was just talking with my partner earlier today about how I like to be pinned down and just fucked and used. Like, that is my thing. And so I wasn't really worried about depth control or any of that.
When you say that, I want to make sure that we add, if you are pinned down and just used for the pleasure of it and completely controlled, that occurs only in a consensual, well-negotiated role with two, it's two in this case, it could be more, two respected...
Hopefully it is more.
Well, that's you being a slutty bottom.
Yes. A needy bottom.
Within a very emotionally safe relationship. So it's saying, I can be vulnerable with you and I can trust you with my body. So when you pin me down, I am safe. When you overcome me and ravish my body, even if there's an ouch, and you like the ouch, I am safe.
Yes.
And many people who aren't aware of the kink community and power dynamics can find it very confusing. Let's go back to cross-dressing. You noticed that the goth chicks were hot.
Ooh, so hot.
And you thought that you wanted them, that you wanted to ravish them, and hopefully they were a slutty bottom.
Sure.
Then you realize that is the body that I want to inhabit.
Yes.
Was there any other shame element that happened in your marriage when you made the realization that really I wanted their body and that femininity, because that felt more natural to me? Anything that occurred within your marriage that gave you a sense of acceptance or judgment?
More judgment. I didn't realize that whole attraction thing until after she had passed away. Even within the marriage, she was so worried I was going to tell her that I was trans. That was her biggest fear, and she did not want that. I think maybe because that was her fear so much, maybe she kind of could tell there was something there.
And what's interesting, so one, she had the fear, like my husband's going to change and can inhabit feminine energy and presence, could change their physical body. Now that doesn't mean you would change your sexual attraction or even sex life with her. So that can be confusing to people. The fear of trans often links to, I fear that my partner's no longer going to be attracted to me or monogamous to me. There's two different distinctions in the orientation and identity.
And I got the impression that it was more the judgment of it, the taboo of it, the wrongness of it, all that judgment side.
Instead of respecting that this felt wrong to her, we internalize it that this is wrong for you.
That there's something wrong with me, that I am flawed.
Well, it links to the shame. So guilt is I have done something wrong. Shame is there's something inherently wrong with me.
Yes. I got into therapy when she went into hospice.
And what year was that?
That was 2018. That was probably in September of 2018.
And if she's in hospice at 2018, how old was she?
She was 36.
36.
Yes.
And how long had she been ill?
She was in the hospital, well, it was like 7 different hospitals. For the last 16 months, she was in hospitals.
We'll just say about the year and a half or so, and then transitioned into hospice.
Gosh, that was quite a ride, but that's a whole nother story. At that point, she had passed away, getting into therapy for the first time in my life.
Did she die in 2018?
It was, yes.
It was
October
in 2018.
14th of 2018.
And you were 36 at the time as well?
Correct. So at this point, like, we had together 22 years. We were so codependent and built our whole lives around each other. I had no idea who I was as an individual or how I would even move forward without her.
The hell is my life? I am lost.
Yes.
So it wasn't even, I'm thinking about my gender identity, I'm exploring my sexual orientation.
Yeah, none of that was there.
I'm trying to figure out how to live.
Trying to figure out literally how to live, because at that point I wanted to die. Just how not to die, really, and how to get through that. And once I did get through to the other side of that, then I had to address my drug use, which had really peaked at that point. That was definitely my bottom.
Can you give me a time frame? So she passed in 2018, and you were working on how the hell do I even survive? And you were attempting to survive by numbing yourself with drugs.
Correct.
And you said you had to then deal with your drug abuse when you kind of working through to some degree your grief. What year was that?
So that was still 2018. So it was quite a roller coaster.
Year. Yes. Awful year. My heart goes out to you.
Thank you. I make it to the point where now I'm getting into recovery and stopping using.
How the hell did you even get into recovery? Because you felt alone.
I had this moment of clarity where I was with my brother and his girlfriend, saw that there was still love and beauty in the world in this instance, and had the thought, maybe there is something here for me. And
was your brother aware of your drug abuse?
Not to the extent it was at. He knew I always used drugs, but he did not know I was using the drugs I was using.
Yeah, that you were deep in the pit.
Yes.
And that's another part of secret keeping. Being in, I'm kind of exploring, figuring out who I am within the gender spectrum. Who the hell I am as a widow.
Yeah.
Keeping it secret about the drug abuse.
Right.
And what would a sober life look like, and will I ever get there? And you've been sober.
Do I even want a
you
sober
want to get
life?
There. How long have you been sober now?
Now I have been, so I use clean. That's my word that I use, but for 5 years. So it was, thank you.
5 years kicking ass.
Thank you. It's been quite a journey. Wow.
Did you go into treatment? You said you saw a therapist.
Treatment wasn't part of my journey. My therapist actually told me about Narcotics Anonymous.
Okay.
I had never even heard about it before.
You hadn't?
I've heard of Alcoholics
AA?
Anonymous,
Okay,
but
you
never
didn't know about
Narcotics Anonymous. She didn't know I was using up front either. She was the first person I told. I said, I've been using crack and heroin. Yeah.
Holy shit. You're not just smoking pot every day and being a pothead.
No.
Okay.
No, this is like serious. And
you were in Dante's Inferno and the lower levels of hell.
Anything worth doing is worth doing all the way.
I play hard. I live hard. I used hard.
No, of course I kid. Anyone listening, don't smoke crack, don't shoot heroin.
Isn't a privilege, though, for us to sit here and be humorous about drugs. That tells me the level of your progression.
There was definitely a time that it was not humorous.
I would guess your level of self-judgment was drastically different in 2018 than it is now.
Hugely, yes.
Being able to embrace, you know what, I'm an addict and I got to do something about this shit. Because there is life out there, even though I'm kind of blinded to it right now.
I got into the recovery then, and
that was through therapy and NA.
Therapy and NA. And therapy was probably more helpful, honestly, to my recovery than NA was.
Therapist specialized in substance use abuse?
She did not. So she specialized in trauma.
Now let's make the point here with substance abuse and trauma, and then the word shame, they are best friends.
Trauma is what leads to drug use, and more times than not.
Yes. So she got to the root of this is what influences my use. And then you become addicted within your brain as it becomes a brain disease. Let's then tackle the trauma. The addiction is a symptom of that.
in the first year, did a lot of EMDR therapy
Oh,
and
excellent.
reprocessing of all of the past
I
traumas,
believe
which
that's
was
the
huge.
number one recommended treatment intervention for trauma is EMDR.
It was amazingly successful for me. So grateful to have done that. And we also got into internal family systems, or IFS, got to know my different parts. And so that was really the first year, was getting into those things. And it wasn't until after that first year that I really started looking at, okay, who am I really? Now that I put the drugs down, stopped using, and I've, for the most part, grieved over Robin, like I'm able to start living life again.
And
But
what is
how
my
do I
life?
do that? Exactly.
Yeah.
How
what
do
is
I
my life?
live? What is this going to look like? And who am I?
So here's a mirror, and what do you see?
Exactly. Thank goodness my therapist was also part of the LGBTQ community, was very helpful in me figuring out all that. Because first I came to terms with my sexual orientation, which was hard enough.
And you labeled that as pan in the beginning?
I did label that as pansexual in the beginning.
So I'm attracted to the human.
Yes.
I'm not, it doesn't matter what the genitals look like.
Correct. Worked on a lot of the shame around that, with that Catholic upbringing. Worked on that first. And when I could accept myself within that, and I started taking better care of my health at this point. And
well, because you struggled with obesity at that time too.
I did.
You said that you were a chunky kid, and then into adulthood, and then having the grief that your body didn't look like you felt, just in not only the gender piece, but health-wise.
Right, because emotional eating was a big part of my coping mechanisms along with the drugs.
Because when I met you, I had no idea that you had lost a mass amount of weight, because I didn't, know you during that time.
Right. I started really looking at my gender.
So you went to the sexual orientation route, worked through shame of saying, I am pan, and
Yes.
I am wonderful being me, and I happen to be pan. That's just a part of who I am.
Yes, and so that was that sexual orientation part of the SOGIE, the
Right.
SO. Then I talked to my therapist about feeling a lot of feminine energy within myself, was exploring maybe like balance within me, or to some degree, I think everybody has some feminine and masculine energy within them.
The yin and yang image comes up.
Not nearly as balanced as in that for a lot of people. And I actually found out my testosterone was low. My doctor at the time wanted to start supplementing testosterone.
What about testosterone didn't feel right? Is it that it reflected part of your gender?
As I was starting to see myself more and accept who I was more, the thought of moving further to the masculine side just felt gross to me.
Interesting.
I couldn't relate
felt gross.
to it.
So that's how averse you felt to it.
Yeah. And so I said to the doctor, I don't want to do that. In fact, if I'm going to be taking hormones, I'd like to take more feminizing hormones and go the other direct, because that is more in line with who I feel I am.
Was that in 2019, 2020?
So that would have been in 2020. Really felt a lot more freedom to do all of this once the pandemic really set in.
What made the difference? I mean, you've had such a process of amazing growth and healing, but with a lot of challenges. How did the pandemic affect your exploration and getting to the true you?
A big thing that it did was couldn't be out in a lot more, and so had really smaller social circles, less people in our life. It removed so many of the boxes that I had been put myself in, keeping myself in. It removed all of these boxes in my life of conformity. At that point, I was able to really be myself.
So the social isolation actually benefited your personal growth.
It did, because I had the time and stillness to see myself and be with myself, hear myself, really get to understand who I was.
And your value. The music for Tiffany Turned On is provided by Kumasi Afrobeat. You can find them online at KUMASIAFROBEAT.com. They are New Orleans' full Afrobeat band. They play to make you move. If If you enjoyed today's episode, click follow, like, give me a review. Did you know that books or items that I recommend in the podcast can be found on my website? Check me out. Watch my TEDx talk titled I Love Pleasure. It is all at neworleanssextherapy.com. Get turned on to life and in your bedroom.